They called her crazy for bringing a World War II rifle to SEAL selection, until the impossible shot proved them all wrong. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment telling us what city or country you're watching from. The rain fell like bullets on the Coronado Naval Base that October morning. Cold, relentless, punishing. The kind of rain that made you question every decision that brought you to this moment. Standing alone in the pre-dawn darkness, 29-year-old Sierra Callahan clutched the worn leather strap of her grandfather's M1 Garand rifle. The wood stock was darker than it should be, stained by decades of Alaskan rain, her father's sweat and now her own trembling hands. Around her, 42 Navy SEAL candidates prepared their gear. State-of-the-art Barrett M82s, precision Remington 700s, night vision scopes worth more than her entire childhood home in Kodiak Island, Alaska. And there she stood, with an 80-year-old battle rifle that belonged in a museum. "Is that thing even legal?" someone muttered behind her. Sierra didn't turn around. She'd heard worse. Much worse. Growing up on Kodiak Island meant growing up with ghosts. Her grandfather, James Ironsight Callahan, had carried this exact M1 Garand through the Pacific Theater in World War II, through Guadalcanal, through Okinawa, through hell itself. He'd come home with 3 Purple Hearts and a promise. "This rifle saved my life 47 times. Someday it might save yours." Her father, Marcus Callahan, had been a Coast Guard rescue swimmer, the kind of man who ran toward drowning ships while everyone else ran away. He'd taught Sierra to shoot with that same M1 Garand when she was 8 years old, standing on a makeshift range behind their cabin while the Alaskan mist rolled in from the Bering Sea. "Modern rifles are smart, Sierra," he told her, his weathered hands guiding hers on the woodstock. "But this rifle, it has a soul. It remembers every shot, every life it protected. You don't just aim it, you trust it." 2 years ago, Marcus died doing what he loved. A fishing vessel capsized in 30-foot swells during a winter storm. He saved 11 people before hypothermia took him. They found him still holding onto the last survivor, a 6-year-old girl, keeping her head above water even as his own body shut down. Sierra scattered his ashes from the same cliff where he'd taught her to shoot, and she made a promise to that cold Alaskan wind. She would carry his legacy. She would become the kind of warrior who ran toward danger, not away from it. She would prove that the old ways, discipline, instinct, trust, still mattered in a world obsessed with technology, even if it meant bringing an antique rifle to the most elite military selection program in the world. "Callahan!" Master Chief Brick Donovan stood at the front of the formation like a statue carved from granite and rage. 6'4", 240 pounds of pure intimidation. 23 years in the teams, 7 combat deployments. A legend who'd seen everything, and right now he was staring directly at Sierra. Step forward. Every head turned. 42 sets of eyes locked onto her as she moved through the formation, the M1 Garand slung across her back, its weight both familiar and suffocating. Master Chief Donovan's jaw tightened. His eyes, cold, grey, calculating, swept from Sierra's face down to the rifle and back up again. "What is that?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Sierra's voice came out steady, stronger than she felt. "M1 Garand, Master Chief. Semi-automatic rifle, 30-06 Springfield. Effective range. I know what an M1 Garand is, Callahan." His voice could have cut steel. "What I don't know is why you think this is a museum tour instead of SEAL sniper selection." Scattered laughter rippled through the candidates behind her. Sierra kept her eyes forward. "It was my father's rifle, Master Chief, and my grandfather's before him. I'm qualified with modern systems, but I requested permission to use..." Permission. Donovan stepped closer, so close she could see the faint scar running down his left temple. "You think this is about permission? You think the Taliban asks permission before they put a bullet through your team's position?" "No, Master Chief. You think a hostage asks permission before they bleed out waiting for a shot you can't make because you're too sentimental about Grandpa's war stories? The words hit like a fist to the gut, but Sierra didn't flinch. No, Master Chief. Donovan's eyes narrowed. For a long moment he said nothing. The rain continued to fall. Somewhere in the distance a helicopter lifted off. Finally, he spoke. Quieter now, more dangerous. You've got one chance to prove that relic isn't a liability. One. We've got a 1,000-yard qualification shoot at 600. You miss, you're out. You hesitate, you're out. You waste my time with that antique, you're out. He leaned in. And Callahan? 38 candidates have already dropped. Nobody's going to remember your name when you fail. He stepped back, raised his voice to the entire formation. Sunrise qualification, gear up, move. The range was a brutal stretch of coastal terrain, uneven, wind-swept, unforgiving. Targets at 500, 750 and 1,000 yards. Moving silhouettes, hostile wind patterns, the kind of conditions that separated wannabes from warriors. Sierra found her position, prone, on a slight incline, wet grass soaking through her fatigues. She could feel the eyes on her, the whispers. She's not going to make it. That rifle doesn't even have a scope. Iron sights at 1,000 yards. She's insane. To her left, Corporal Derek Hayes set up his Barrett M82 with the confidence of someone who'd never failed anything in his life. Former college football star, recruited straight out of UCLA, the kind of guy who wore his arrogance like cologne. "Hey, museum girl," he called over. "When you wash out, can I buy that rifle off you? Might look good over my fireplace." Sierra didn't respond. She was already in her zone. Her hands moved with muscle memory older than thought. Loading the N-block clip. Feeling the weight distribute. Pressing her cheek against the stock. Smooth, familiar, like coming home. Through the iron sights, the world narrowed. Wind from the northwest, gusting 12 to 15 knots, temperature 52 degrees, humidity high from the rain, all factors her father had drilled into her since childhood. Modern shooters rely on computers, Sierra. But what happens when the technology fails? When the battery dies? When the scope fogs up? Then you trust your instincts, Dad. No. Then you trust your training. Instinct is panic in disguise. Training is instinct refined by 1,000 repetitions. Range is hot! The first target appeared at 500 yards, a silhouette partially obscured by morning mist. Sierra exhaled slowly, squeezed the trigger. Crack! The M1 Garand's report echoed across the range, sharper, older, more visceral than the modern rifles around her. The target dropped. "Hit!" called the range safety officer. Around her, other candidates fired. Some hit, some missed. The pressure was a living thing, crushing down on everyone. 750 yards. The target moved left to right, simulating a hostile combatant repositioning. Sierra adjusted, led the target, felt the wind shift, squeezed. Crack! Hit! Beside her, Corporal Hayes missed his shot. His confident smirk vanished. He reset, fired again, hit, but Sierra had already moved on. 1,000 yards. The final target was barely visible through the coastal haze. A black silhouette against grey sky, positioned on a slight rise, wind whipping across the kill zone. Around her, candidates fired, and missed, and fired again. The Barrett M82s boomed, the Remington 700s cracked, technology and precision and training all colliding with the brutal reality of distance, wind and pressure. Master Chief Donovan stood behind the firing line, binoculars raised, watching every shot, judging every failure. Sierra slowed her breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The way her father taught her on that cliff in Alaska, with the Bering Sea crashing below and the mist rolling in like ghosts. You don't shoot the target, Sierra. You become part of the moment. The wind, the distance, the rifle, they're all one thing. You're just the conductor. She felt it then, the stillness between heartbeats, the moment when training becomes instinct and instinct becomes something deeper, something almost spiritual. The iron sights lined up, front post centered on the target's mass, windage adjusted, elevation perfect. She squeezed the trigger like it was the most natural thing in the world. Crack! The M1 Garand's report rolled across the range. For a moment, nothing, just silence and mist, and the held breath of 42 candidates. Then, hit! Center mass! The range officer's voice cut through the morning like a lightning strike. Sierra didn't celebrate. She simply ejected the clip, safetied the rifle, and stood. Behind her she heard Corporal Hayes swear under his breath, heard the whispers turn from mockery to shock, but she only cared about one reaction. Master Chief Donovan lowered his binoculars. His expression was unreadable, stone carved from years of combat and command. He stared at Sierra for a long moment, then at the M1 Garand, then back at her face. Finally, he spoke, just loud enough for her to hear. "Your father would be proud, Callahan." Then he turned away, barking orders to reset the range. But Sierra heard the respect in his voice, the shift from skepticism to something harder to earn, acknowledgement. She looked down at the M1 Garand, scratched, worn, older than most of the candidates on this range, and whispered words only the rifle could hear. "We're not done yet, Dad, not even close." 3 weeks into SEAL sniper selection, Sierra Callahan had become a ghost story. The candidates whispered about her in the barracks. The instructors watched her with a mixture of respect and suspicion. And Master Chief Donovan, he pushed her harder than anyone else, not because he wanted her to fail, but because he needed to know if she could survive what came next. Because selection wasn't just about shooting, it was about becoming someone who could make the impossible shot when lives depended on it. And Sierra was about to face her biggest test yet. The briefing room smelled like stale coffee and tension. 12 candidates remained from the original 42. Sierra sat in the back row, the M1 Garand resting against her shoulder like a loyal dog. Around her, the other candidates carried their high-tech rifles with the confidence of people who'd never been forced to improvise. Corporal Derek Hayes sat 2 seats away, his Barrett M82 gleaming under the fluorescent lights. He'd stopped making jokes about Sierra's museum piece after she'd outshot him on 3 consecutive range days. Now he just glared. To her right sat Lieutenant Jackson "Jax" Torres, former Marine Recon, 28 years old, with a reputation for being one of the best natural shooters anyone had seen in a decade. Unlike Hayes, Torres had actually approached Sierra after the 1,000-yard qualification. "That was a hell of a shot," he'd said simply. "Your old man taught you well." It was the only compliment she'd received. And it mattered more than she'd admit. Master Chief Donovan entered the room like a storm front. Behind him came Commander Rachel Voss, a lean, intense woman in her early 40s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that could dissect your soul. She was the operations officer, the one who designed the selection scenarios that broke most candidates. "Listen up," Donovan began, his voice filling the room. "What you're about to hear is classified. What you're about to experience will determine if you belong in this program." Commander Voss stepped forward, pulling up a satellite image on the screen. It showed a dense forest in the Pacific Northwest, rugged terrain, heavy canopy, zero visibility from above. "Joint training exercise," Voss explained. U.S. Army Rangers conducting a hostage rescue simulation in the Olympic National Forest. They've been tracking a high-value target, played by one of our actors, for 72 hours. Intel suggests the target is holed up in an abandoned firewatch tower, 1,600 yards from the nearest viable sniper position. She let that sink in. 1,600 yards, through forest, with unpredictable wind and elevation changes. "Here's the problem," Voss continued. "The Ranger sniper team missed their window. Weather's moving in, visibility's dropping to near zero. They need backup, and they need it in the next 6 hours. Donovan crossed his arms. This is a live fire exercise. Real bullets, real consequences. You'll be inserted by helicopter, hike 4 miles through hostile terrain, establish a sniper position, and make the shot. Alone. No support, no backup. Just you, your rifle, and your training. He paused. Let the weight of it settle. We're only sending one candidate. The rest of you will provide overwatch and scenario support. Commander Voss will select who goes. Every candidate sat up straighter. This was it, the kind of opportunity that could make or break a career. Commander Voss's eyes swept the room. She studied each face, each posture, each subtle tell that separated confidence from arrogance, skill from ego. Her gaze stopped on Sierra. "Callahan, you're up." The room went silent. Corporal Hayes actually laughed. A short, bitter sound. "You're sending her? With that antique? Commander, with all due respect, I didn't ask for your opinion, Corporal." Voss's voice could have frozen lava. Callahan made a 1,000-yard shot with iron sights in conditions that made half of you miss with advanced optics. Let's see what she can do at 1600. Hayes shut up, but Sierra could feel the resentment radiating off him like heat. Lieutenant Torres leaned over and whispered, "Don't let the pressure get to you. You've got this." Sierra nodded, but inside her heart was hammering. 1,600 yards, through forest, in deteriorating weather, with an 80-year-old rifle. "Dad, I hope you're watching because I'm going to need all the help I can get." The helicopter insertion was brutal. Wind shear from the incoming storm system made the ride feel like being inside a washing machine. Sierra gripped the M1 Garand tighter, feeling the worn wood stock ground her in the chaos. Across from her sat Master Chief Donovan. He hadn't said a word since they'd taken off, just watched her with those calculating grey eyes. Finally, he spoke over the headset. "You know why Voss picked you?" Sierra shook her head. "Because everyone else in that room would have brought their ego. You just bring the rifle." He leaned forward. "But here's what you need to understand, Callahan. This isn't about proving yourself anymore. This is about becoming the person your team will trust when everything goes to hell. You make this shot, you're not just passing selection, you're becoming something more." The helicopter banked hard. Below, the forest looked like an ocean of green and shadow. 30 seconds, the pilot called. Donovan held Sierra's gaze. "Your father ran toward danger. Now it's your turn. Don't think, just move." The helicopter touched down in a small clearing. Sierra jumped out, the M1 Garand secured across her back, her pack heavy with ammunition and gear. The moment her boots hit the ground, the helicopter lifted off. The rotor wash nearly knocked her over. Then it was gone, disappearing into the grey sky, leaving her alone in the forest. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. Sierra checked her compass, 4 miles northeast to the target zone. 6 hours to make position, assess the situation and take the shot. She started moving. The forest was alive with sound. Wind through the canopy, the distant call of a raven. Her own breathing, steady and controlled, the way her father had taught her during their long hunts on Kodiak Island. Hunting isn't about killing, Sierra. It's about patience, about reading the land. About becoming part of the environment so completely that you disappear. She moved like a ghost, stepping over branches, avoiding dry leaves, keeping her silhouette low and broken. Every 50 yards, she stopped, listened, assessed. 2 miles in, the rain started. Not the soft Pacific Northwest mist, but a cold, punishing downpour that turned the trail into a river of mud. Sierra kept moving. 3 miles in, she heard voices. Male, aggressive, coming from the north. She froze, pressed herself against a massive Douglas fir, controlled her breathing. Through the trees she saw them. 2 hostile actors in tactical gear, moving through the forest with the casual confidence of people who thought they were alone. Part of the exercise, playing insurgents guarding the high-value target. They passed within 20 feet of her position. never saw her, never even looked in her direction. When they were gone, Sierra exhaled slowly. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. Training, overriding adrenaline, just like her father taught her. She checked her watch. 2 hours gone, 4 miles covered, right on schedule. The fire watch tower appeared through the rain, like something from a nightmare. 60 feet tall, rusted metal framework, perched on a rocky outcrop that gave it perfect visibility for miles. And at the top, barely visible through the weather, Sierra could see the target. A mannequin dressed in hostile combatant gear, positioned to simulate a sniper overwatch. 1,600 yards away. Sierra found her position on a slight rise, partially concealed by a fallen cedar. She set up quickly, efficiently. Checked the wind, gusting, unpredictable, shifting every few seconds. Checked the elevation, steep angle, which meant accounting for gravity drop. Checked the rain, coming in sheets now, reducing visibility to near zero. This was impossible. Every modern sniper in the world would have said this shot couldn't be made, not in these conditions, not at this distance, not with any rifle, let alone an M1 Garand with iron sights. Sierra pulled out her father's worn notebook, the one he'd kept during his Coast Guard days, filled with hand-drawn wind charts and elevation tables and notes written in his careful, precise handwriting. She flipped to the section on extreme distance shooting in adverse conditions. There, in the margin, he'd written something she'd read 100 times, but never truly understood until now. When the shot is impossible, stop trying to make it perfect. Just make it true. Sierra closed the notebook, pressed her cheek against the M1 Garand stock, and let everything else fall away. Through the iron sights, the world became simple. Front post, target distance, wind, rain. Her father's voice calm and steady. Don't fight the conditions, Sierra. Dance with them. She waited. Watched the wind patterns through the rain, saw how the trees bent, how the drops fell, found the rhythm in the chaos. 1 minute, 2, 5. Then, there, a lull. A brief moment when the wind dropped and the rain softened and the universe held its breath. Sierra squeezed the trigger. Crack! The M1 Garand's report echoed through the forest like thunder. For a long moment, nothing. Just the rain and the wind and the impossibility of what she'd just attempted. Then her radio crackled, Master Chief Donovan's voice stunned and begrudgingly impressed. Hit! Center mass, 1,600 yards, confirmed. Sierra didn't move, didn't celebrate, just whispered into the rain. 6 months after selection, Sierra Callahan had earned a new call sign, Mist Walker. The name came from Lieutenant Torres after a training exercise where Sierra had moved through morning fog so silently that she'd positioned herself behind 3 instructors without any of them noticing. Master Chief Donovan had called it the most impressive fieldcraft demonstration I've seen in 20 years. But call signs didn't matter. Neither did the grudging respect from candidates who'd once mocked her. What mattered was proving that she belonged here, not as a novelty, not as a diversity checkbox, but as a warrior who could be trusted when lives hung in the balance. And that moment came on a cold February morning in the mountains of Afghanistan. Operation Iron Falcon. The briefing had been simple. Extract a CIA asset from a Taliban-controlled village in the Hindu Kush Mountains. Intelligence suggested minimal resistance. Clean in, clean out. Textbook operation. Intelligence was wrong. Now 6 hours into the mission, SEAL Team 7 was pinned down in a narrow valley, taking heavy fire from entrenched positions on 3 sides. The CIA asset, a local translator who'd provided intelligence that had saved dozens of American lives, was wounded and bleeding out in a stone compound 200 meters away. And Sierra was the only sniper in position to do anything about it. She lay prone on a rocky outcrop, 800 meters from the valley floor, the M1 Garand pressed against her shoulder, her breathing controlled, despite the chaos unfolding below. Through her spotoscope, she could see her team, Master Chief Donovan, and 9 SEALs trapped behind a low stone wall, ammunition running low, casualties mounting. The Taliban fighters had the high ground, elevated positions on 3 sides of the valley, firing down with ruthless efficiency. Sierra had already taken out 2 of them, but more kept appearing. This wasn't minimal resistance. This was a coordinated ambush. Her radio crackled, Donovan's voice, strained but controlled. "Mist Walker, this is actual. We're combat ineffective. 2 wounded, including the asset. Need immediate fire support on enemy positions, grid." Gunfire drowned out his transmission. Sierra's hands tightened on the M1 Garand. She could see the problem clearly. The main Taliban position was inside an old Soviet bunker, reinforced concrete with a narrow firing slit. The shooter inside had a PKM machine gun and was systematically shredding her team's cover. That bunker had to be neutralized, now. But there was a problem. The firing slit was maybe 12 inches wide, at 800 meters, in high-altitude wind conditions, and she'd have to thread the bullet through at an extreme angle to hit the shooter inside. It was, by any reasonable standard, impossible. Sierra keyed her radio. "Actual, I have eyes on the primary threat. Bunker position, north side of the valley, requesting permission to engage." A pause. Then Donovan's voice, darker now. "Negative, Mist Walker. That's an impossible shot. I need you to provide covering fire while we attempt to extract." "Sir, with respect, if you try to move, that PKM will cut you down. Let me take the shot." "Callahan, that's an order. Do not." The radio transmission ended abruptly. Below, Sierra saw Master Chief Donovan take cover as a burst of machine gun fire stitched across the wall beside him. Sierra made a decision. She was about to disobey a direct order from her commanding officer, in combat in a hostile war zone. It could end her career, court-martial her, destroy everything she'd worked for. But if she didn't try, her team would die. "Dad, I need you now, more than ever." Sierra settled into her position. Check the wind, gusting 12 knots from the west. Check the elevation, steep downward angle. Check the target, 12 inches wide, 800 meters away, armored on all sides except that narrow firing slit. Through the iron sights of the M1 Garand, the bunker looked impossibly small, a dark rectangle against grey stone. A crack in the universe that she had to thread a bullet through while the world exploded around her. She thought about her father, about Marcus Callahan diving into freezing water to save people he didn't know, about him teaching her to shoot on that cliff in Alaska, the mist rolling in from the Bering Sea, his steady voice guiding her through doubt and fear and the crushing weight of legacy. "You don't shoot the target, Sierra. You become part of the moment." Sierra exhaled slowly, let her heartbeat settle. Found the stillness between breaths, where training became instinct and instinct became something closer to faith. She squeezed the trigger. Crack! The M1 Garand's report echoed across the valley. For a moment the world held its breath. Then, silence. The PKM machine gun stopped firing. Through her scope, Sierra saw movement in the bunker. Confusion. The shooter slumping forward. Her bullet had gone through the firing slit and hit the Taliban fighter in the chest. An impossible shot, made possible by an 80-year-old rifle and a woman who'd learned to dance with the wind. Below, Master Chief Donovan's voice crackled over the radio. "What the hell was that? Mistwalker, report!" "Target neutralized, sir. You're clear to extract." A pause. Then, almost disbelieving, "Confirmed. Moving now. Mist Walker, that was one hell of a shot." The extraction took 40 minutes. Sierra provided overwatch as her team moved the wounded CIA asset to the extraction point. 2 more Taliban fighters appeared during the withdrawal. Sierra dropped them both before they could fire a single shot. When the helicopter finally lifted off, Team 7 safely aboard, the asset alive and being treated by the medic, Sierra allowed herself to collapse against the rocks, exhausted, shaking, the M1 Garand still warm in her hands. She'd done it. saved her team, made the impossible shot, and violated a direct order in the process. 48 hours later, Sierra stood at attention in Commander Voss's office, waiting for the verdict. Court-martial, demotion, discharge. She'd played the scenario 100 times in her head. Master Chief Donovan stood to her left, his expression unreadable. Commander Voss sat behind her desk, reviewing the after-action report. When she finally looked up, her eyes were hard. "Petty Officer Callahan, you disobeyed a direct order from your commanding officer during combat operations. Do you have anything to say?" Sierra kept her voice steady. "No excuse, ma'am. I made a judgment call. I was wrong to disregard the order." Voss nodded slowly. "Master Chief Donovan recommended you for a court-martial." Sierra's stomach dropped. "However," Voss continued, "he also recommended you for the Navy Cross, for extraordinary heroism in combat, for making a shot that saved 9 American lives and prevented a strategic intelligence failure." Sierra blinked. "Ma'am." Donovan finally spoke. His voice was rough. "You scared the hell out of me, Callahan, but you also reminded me why we train the way we do, why we push candidates to the breaking point. Because when the moment comes, when everything's going wrong and the book answer won't work, we need people who can improvise, who can make the impossible shot." He stepped forward. "Your father would be proud. Hell, I'm proud." Commander Voss stood. "The Navy Cross recommendation is approved. Congratulations, Petty Officer Callahan. You're officially a SEAL." Sierra didn't know what to say, didn't trust herself to speak. Voss came around the desk, extended her hand. "Your grandfather's rifle has quite a legacy. I think you just added a new chapter to it." 3 months later, Sierra stood on the same cliff in Kodiak Island where her father had taught her to shoot. The Bering Sea crashed below. The mist rolled in like ghosts. She held the M1 Garand, scratched, worn, older than most of the SEALs she served with, and whispered to the wind, "I did it, Dad. I ran toward danger, just like you." Somewhere in the distance, a raven called. The mist shifted, and for just a moment Sierra could have sworn she heard her father's voice carried on the Alaskan wind. "I never doubted you, baby girl. Not for a second." She smiled, pressed the rifle against her shoulder, and took one final shot into the fog, not at any target, but simply to hear the sound echo across the water. A salute to the past, a promise to the future. The impossible shot, made possible by legacy, training, and a woman who'd learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was moving forward despite it. Final message. Legacy isn't what you're given. It's what you do with it. Sierra Callahan became one of the most decorated female snipers in Navy SEAL history. But she never forgot where she came from, or the rifle that made it all possible. Because some things, honor, discipline, family, never go out of style. That one was for you, Dad.